gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Two Fat Guys Talking Flowers, where we're always going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly about flowers. I'm Fern. We got Joelle on the ones and twos. Mike is in the house. Mimi and Ryan are on Zoom here with us. And our unique, interesting, got a lot of history guest is none other than James François-Pijuan, the author of the NYC Historic Floral District. Welcome, James. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast today.
So, James, I feel like I totally butchered your last name. How is your last name pronounced?
François-Pijuan.
François-Pijuan. And where is that from? Because that's sounds French. It sounds Spanish. Talk to us.
So basically, when I got married, the day that I got married, my wife hyphenated our name, and I was like, I want that. That sounds so cool, François-Pijuan. I wasn't a florist at the time, and eventually, years later, I found out that François means French, and then Pijuan means peonies in the pronunciation in France. So I was blown away because I didn't know that that was the meaning. And I learned this after I became a florist. So that blew me away.
Talk about meant to be. Meant to be. French peony. I like that. Mike just saw some French peonies not that long ago.
Yeah, I was on a cruise in Europe in March, and the French peony season was just starting, and a young lady that I know invited me to come see her farm. So she picked me up in, I forget where that was.
She picked you up from the cruise ship.
Nice. Picked me up there.
Oh, wow.
Picked me up and took me to the farm, took me to an authentic French bakery where we got a real croissant.
Croissant.
Mommy was in her glory in that bakery. She found everything she likes in there. And
I'm with it.
Yeah, I got to see real French peonies growing in a real French farm.
Did she have macaroons? Did they have macaroons? Are macaroons French?
No.
Yeah.
They didn't have macaroons.
Oh,
Madeleines.
Yeah, they had those.
So my last name is pretty interesting. The Pijuan came from France, meaning peonies, but there's a sense that they were peonies growers, back in the 16th century, 17th century. And the peonies originally came from China. And the Europeans got a hold of it. They brought it over and started using it, for their florals. And so basically, the Pijuans, they came from France. They settled in Spain. The last name changed. I mean, the spelling changed, but the pronunciation was the same. And then they migrated through to the Caribbean and down to Dominican Republic.
Damn, that's some history there. That's impressive. So you're Dominican descent, right?
Well, I was adopted into a Dominican family. I'm half Afro-American, Italian, and German. And I was raised by Dominicans. I was adopted when I was 6 months old here in New York. And they raised me here in New York. And they came from the islands back in 1940s when the dictator took place. They came to New York.
Man,
damn, what a mess.
That's crazy. You got all kinds of stuff going on over there.
That's great.
So James, talk to us. Why don't you go back all the way to the beginning? What led you to become a florist?
I went to school, Parsons School of Design. I was a sculptor and painter, and I loved painting. I loved sculpture and all that. And eventually, when I left college, I started working at the Waldorf Astoria and as a bellhop. And at nighttime, they would throw out tons of flowers. I mean, tons of flowers after these events. So at the time, I was single, and I was taking these flowers and giving them to my girlfriend at the time. Eventually, I left Waldorf, and I started working as a cater waiter. And luckily, during that time, I had learned how to take photography, how to make books, how to portfolio. And during that time, I was looking at the flowers on the table. And it was one gig where Preston Bailey was doing something at the Met Opera House, at the Museum of Natural History. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. Why am I doing, waitering? I can do flowers. I want to do the job he has. I want to do what he's doing. So eventually I started to take the flowers home after the events as a cater waiter and started redoing the florals and taking pictures of them and then bring them back to the maitre d and say, hey, look what I did, spoke to the catering managers, the captains, and eventually they started giving me little events here and there. And it wasn't until I started to really work with
What
one
year was
designer.
that, James? What year are we talking about?
I was 92, like 90, no, sorry, 90, 97 and 98. So I started to, make a book, make a portfolio, and pimping it out. New York's, the florist community in New York was very, they felt very threatened by each other. And so it was very hard to get a mentor, to get someone to help me to figure out what the hell I'm doing. But eventually I got little, gems and little pieces of nuggets that they gave me. And
who were your mentors? Who was helping you? Who were they?
There was different individuals that I would approach who I didn't even know their names. I would come over to Stephen. Hey, Stephen, and how do you do this? Or I'll run over to someone else that I've seen in the market that I said hi to, and eventually, they would. I would ask them a question like, "What do you do? How do you do this?" And so I would nip, and eventually, I started to go from there. I did one gig with, I rolled up to Macy's to the bridal show. They had a trunk show, and I said, hey, can I do one of these? And they're like, sure. So I made all these really unique bouquets out of, succulents and all that stuff. And they were like, people were blown away. And one person in particular was a PR person. And she says, you know what? I really love what you did. I would love for you to help me out with my gigs with, these perfume and cosmetic companies. And I was like, yeah. Meanwhile, back at me, I'm like, So I wind up really doing good work with them. And eventually from there, she says, I'm going to give you 10 weddings. And I haven't done a wedding at all at that time. And I was like, okay. And so she gave me 10 of her friends' weddings. And each of them was a trial by fire. And luckily, 90% of them went well. And I was able to work with those brides and work with other event people. And it kept on trickling down and growing. So that's how I got into it.
Wow. They gave you a shot and you hit it.
He took it. He ran.
I had to.
I think that story is the same for a lot of florists and event florists, that somebody they met along the way gave them a little shot in the arm, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. And, I also worked as a freelancer for Preston Bailey. I worked as a freelancer for some other florists that I just really worked with them very short term, like weeks, a week. But during that time, I was sucking everything up.
Yeah.
And I would ask them, oh, how do you make those ornaments from the rose petals? And they would tell me, and how do you do this? And how do you do that? And why do you do this? And why do you do that? So all that time I'm learning and I'm adding things to my toolbox.
You could probably learn on one day at a Preston Bailey event for one day. You can learn as much as like a week in a class.
It's true. It's true.
People pay a lot of money to learn from him. People pay a lot of money to learn from him.
He does those seminars, and there's not an empty seat in house. Let me tell you.
Yeah, but like going to those seminars versus working one of those events, like actually doing the work, would be night and day.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting yelled at. You're that's too big. That's too many flowers. Yeah. And then you're seeing the chaos. This controlled chaos happening all around you. And I'm asking you, I didn't know you could do that with hydrangea. I didn't know you can do that with that. I didn't, So you're learning so much at one time. You're talking to other freelancers around you and saying, oh, what did you do? Who did you work with? Blah, 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 blah. And so you're learning a lot as you're going along. And
Plus, you had the experience. If you are a sculptor and you went to Parsons, you have that artistic eye. So that's a head up.
Oh, yeah. That helped tremendously.
I went to a campus visit at Parsons.
So did I.
Yeah.
Could never go. And
it was
our
cool, though.
Rochester of Institutes of technology and design. Yeah.
Oh,
Went
wow.
through those and yeah.
No,
Never-
my parents were dry cleaners. They were, my father owned a dry cleaner. My mom was a housewife, and my brothers and sisters were all like, 20 years older than me, 10, 15 years older than me. So I was very lucky that I was given the free reign to pursue the things I really loved.
Yeah.
And they supported me. Even though it was crazy for them, they still pushed me, let me go.
It's awesome.
That's kind of how it goes, right? The youngest one of the siblings usually gets the better path.
Yeah.
If you compare Junior to Connor, there's a difference. But there's also a difference in the end result,
I agree. But no, that's not a bad thing, man. That's really cool. That's awesome that you got those opportunities. That school is like world renowned. It's awesome. You've been doing florals for how long now?
Since
Since
98.
97.
98, 97, yeah. I got my business license around 98.
Wow. So what led up to becoming the author of the NYC Historic Floral District? I know there's a lot of things.
Well, during the pandemic, we were seeing the annihilation of many florists at the time and a couple of wholesalers. And during that time, I was looking for something, and I said, we need to make a directory. We don't have a directory here in New York. We should have a directory. And so I created a directory.
Was the directory of wholesalers, florists, everybody, or was it specific to categories?
Yep. Wholesalers, florists.
Did it include wholesalers off of 28th Street as well? Or
No.
So exclusively in the market area.
Yep. So basically, all the designers that were in our area, all the wholesalers, the suppliers, the suppliers of hard goods, stuff like that. So I created that, which it just helped so much. And then I started to work on the history a little bit. So I said, we need a history section, but I was like, where do I go for this? So I started searching, and luckily, several years before, I've been tracing my genealogy, my parents that raised me, my biological parents, my wife's family, and so I gained a lot of knowledge and researching of that type of material. And so I started to apply the same things I was learning, doing the research with the floral industry. And it took about 2 years. I had to dig through tons of information.
Hold on a second. I need to get something. We need to pause for. Sorry about that. I wanted to go get my copy.
Oh, thank you.
The book.
Nice.
Because
what a cover picture.
Yeah, that's. I have a copy of the book, the New York City Historic Floral District, and anybody who's into flower history, no matter where you are, you will get a kick out of this. Not so much. It's so funny because if you really look at the pictures in here, a lot of what they did back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they're still like basically doing the same shit.
Yep.
It's not much has changed.
Like what? Give us an example.
How they put it out on the street, or how they put it out, the product. Not every wholesale store is completely refrigerated. They take the flowers outside every day, and then before they go home, they put it back in the fridge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow along in the book, you'll see pictures of some of those stores displaying the same way as they do now. I don't know. Where did you get these freaking pictures from? Where did you find them?
It was pretty intense. I had to go through antique bookstores around the country. I had to research photographs that were people putting up on that there were publications ripped out of pictures of florists and stuff like that, photographs that other people were getting rid of who were had a history in florals. I had to get to the National Archives. I had to get through a lot of a lot of material to try to Google. I had to find out information through the Florist Review. that went on from the mid 1800s to 1940s. I had to. It was a real big task. It was a really big task, and I eventually, had to. I would meet other people who had family members that were flower growers. Like one gentleman on my floor, he works at a coffee company, and they rent out coffee machines to different cafes. And so I approached him about what I was doing. I wanted to create a flower museum. And he was like, "What? My great grandfather was the Rose King." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, we were up in New Rochelle." And I was like, "What?" And so I started researching. He gave me the information he had, and I found, boom, I found all this material. I was like blown away. And he was the actual Rose King of that time, in 1900, 1910, 1920. He would produce tons of roses that went all over and on trains.
That was from where? What part?
Newer. It's in my website. I believe it was Newer Shell.
Cool.
So
And
I didn't know that that it actually moved. It was closer to the ferry docks. The
yes. Okay. So yes. So in
70.
in the mid 1800s, it was down by the Manhattan market, which was right by the Canal Street. And they weren't inside the market; they were outside the market, and they were selling, plants. They weren't really selling flowers like what we're used to seeing. They were selling plants. And eventually, as New York started growing and the hotels and everything started prospering, all the wealthy people started building homes and building their mansions and stuff like that. Eventually, there became an appetite for cut flowers. So a lot of these kids that were running around delivering these, for like, I don't know, 2 cents, 1 cent, delivering, these plants. Eventually, a lot of these kids came from Europe, from Scotland, from England, from, whatever. And a lot of them were like, "Hey, I can make money." And so some of them saved their pennies and their coins and bought plots of land in Brooklyn, Queens. And eventually they started growing their own and bringing over to the market to be sold. So during that time, there was a surge and things were moving fast, and 10 years goes by like that. So these guys started to create their own organization, and eventually they had to move outside the piers because it wasn't sustainable for them as growers. So they started to move into different buildings and different places, like the Colgan building over on 26th Street. Before that, there was this building on 23rd Street that they moved into. And there they started up one of the first wholesalers who the growers would come there. They would sell things on commission. And that's how it started working there. And eventually another group of growers started establishing their own all the way on the east side on 34th Street. And they started growing, doing their own thing there. And then a lot of people started coming to from 23rd to 34th Street, those streets over there between 6th and 8th, and started flooding that up with wholesalers. So, it started to really take shape. And eventually, it's kind of complicated, but it was never one whole unit of growers. They say, "I want to do my own thing," and that's what a lot of them did. But eventually, in the 1930s and 1940s, it became tighter, and they had, the Cut Flower Exchange got on 26th Street, and they would meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, ring the bell. The florists would come, take their stuff. They're out the door by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Another group would come, who would be another organization would come, do the same thing, and they would leave. And eventually they merged in the 1940s and 50s. So that's what happened. But it's like it all happened. It was kind of loose, and it wound up coming together a bit, and then it broke off after that.
It's the boom, right? New York City and the big boom and everything. I watched The Gilded Age. I don't know if anybody watches the show. And flowers on that show, and just the the history of all these families that contributed to New York City, and not just New York City, to our nation. Really, it was just impressive. Like it was really just a handful of them that really spearheaded this. But that growth, and you see it a lot in that show, and when you read the history, that New York's boom was just so fast. So I can imagine that they had so much business, they had to move somewhere else.
it was incredible. These kids who, some of them didn't know how to speak English, or not English, they didn't know how to read English, or they didn't know how to read, and some of them were able to become successful. Others, just hustling, were able to make things happen. None of them went. Majority of them never went to college. A few of them learned their trade in Europe, and some of them were generational. So it was pretty interesting to see. Reading these stories, they really hit home. They really say, "Wow, these people are really immigrants. These people really, work together." And what was really interesting, I was trying to find some information about Afro-American florists, and it was very hard to find them, because a lot of times when they were written about, they didn't write about what they looked like or what they were just by their name. So it's kind of interesting that they weren't as racist as I thought they would be here in New York. They weren't, and they were at the same time.
Mm.
But one of the great florists there, Charles Thorley, he started his first shop at the age of 16 on 14th Street, and then eventually he became so popular he got another shop on 28th Street, between 28th and 27th Street on Broadway. And then he blew up even further, and he established his third shop. It was where the ball drops in Times Square. And his shop was called the House of Flowers. And basically it was like a 4-5-story building, just oozing flowers. So and JP Morgan used to buy from him. All these wealthy people used to buy from him. And what makes him separates him from the others, is he had an all Afro-American staff. And there were some journals I found that, spoke about how he positively impacted their lives. So it's really incredible, how diverse, how woven this industry was, and how all these layers created what we have today, and how a lot of the kids that were working with the florists and with the wholesalers, they spread out across the nation. Some of them went over to Illinois, some went to Missouri, some went to all over the place.
I went to Miami.
Yep. Some went down south. So I've been learning so much. I'm still learning a lot. I'm still trying to,
But in your research, I think you found some stuff about Mike's family as well.
Yes, I did. And I was trying it's hard to get Mike's family because they only go back so far. And the information that I really would love is the information I would have to pay to get to purchase these books. So it's kind of limited me. But I found a hat of his family that he used to give out.
I don't know how you did that. He found a hat from the 50th anniversary, which I think was like in 1983 or something. He found a hat on eBay. I think you found it.
Yep.
It's crazy. Like, how coincidental. How would you find that? Recently, I found a jacket. Mimi's holding on to it.
Tara's jacket.
There was a young lady. Her name's Tara. I believe she's still in the flower business. They own, or her dad or family owns Morningside Florist in New Jersey. And she was one of the first, daughters of the owner. As far as I can remember, one of the young girls that would come to the market at 5 a.m. and go shopping for her family. And my dad loved Tara, and when he bought jackets for everybody, for our 50th anniversary, he bought Tara a jacket. And while we've been moving our stuff in our house, my wife found Tara's jacket.
Wow.
Which is the original.
Who the hell is Tara?
Which is the original. So Tara's dad is Brian Fisher. Brian Fisher, his brother was Ben Fisher. Ben Fisher was partners with Gary Page, and they were Fisher and Page. Back in I believe they started in the early 90s.
Yep.
And those guys were very ahead of the times. Those guys, the Fisher and Page guys, what stands out in my mind when I was a kid observing is they were like the first ones to bring really high-end flowers into the flower market and purposely, strategically cater to these up-and-coming society event florists.
Yeah.
Like you would go in there and there'd be Casablancas 5 feet tall for $125 a bunch. This is 40 years ago, maybe more. And Ben So Gary was great with that stuff, and Ben was a forager. Ben would go out into the woods, wherever, I don't know where, and he would find flowering blossoms, he would find lilacs, he would find just any crazy shit that would sell to these event florists. He would go out every day.
This was growing wild in the forest?
Not so much in a forest. So, like, there are some affluent neighborhoods that he told, like, I'll tell you a story about him taking me fishing. But before that, he would go to, like, an estate that had a beautiful, apple blossom and cherry blossom and whatever, just maybe lilac trees. And he'd say, I'm going to trim these for you for free, but I want to take what I trim.
Okay.
And he says, I'll even fertilize it for you. And that was a good move for him because after he fertilized it, he knew that when he went back next year,
they would be even better.
They would be even better.
Nice.
So he had this whole thing going on. And then they bought, I don't know if they bought Tom's Flower Farm. They bought some big farm in South Jersey. I forget where. And they were the first to introduce Cafe Ole Dahlia to the event community. They were the first to bring
candy.
Yeah, I remember.
Oohs and ahs. I'm sure that's all they heard.
Yeah.
Oohs
So
and ahs.
after that, then people started to diversify and getting all different stuff. But in the beginning, it was just chrysanthemums and roses. It's just all basic hardware, nuts and bolts, maybe a few lilies here and there. But that really was the beginning of the high end on 28th Street. Was brought to you by Fisher and Page, and I believe Gary Page is still working. I believe he's not retired. He's still going.
Yeah.
Which I don't know his age, but he's
got to be up there.
He's older than me, that's for sure. And I'm in my 60s, so good for him. Good for him. I spoke to him a few years ago for a minute, and it was really nice. It was really nice. But they were
I used to rent out upstairs portion of their space to do flowers, and I used to always hear Ben talking about the stories and where this came from, what this is or what that is. And he was really, he was the most knowledgeable person in the district that I knew.
These were real flowering people. Like these people were not only in it for money.
Right.
They were in it for the sport just as much. I'm sure they made plenty, but they were in it for the sport. And when you're in a market situation and you have your sandwich between 20, 30 competitors, it kind of makes you work harder. It kind of makes you want to compete. It makes you want to outdo the guy next door. Even though he's your buddy and we'll have coffee every day, I still want to get more than you. And that was a lot of that.
So, Mike, hold on. I know that your dad and your uncle, did they open and start a Black & Co.?
No, my grandfather started it. My grandfather in the early 1930s was a civil engineer.
Okay.
And this is going into the Depression now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was involved in building the Triborough Bridge, the Midtown Tunnel, things like that.
Oh, that's cool as shit.
And his brother-in-law was working in the flower market. And I'm just going to throw numbers out there because I don't know the accurate numbers, but let's just say for the conversation, his brother-in-law was working in the flower market and he was making 40 cents a day.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather, as a civil engineer,
helping build,
was making 20 cents a day.
All these amazing things, and he's making half.
Yeah. So he decided to get a job working in the flower market. I don't know if it was with his brother-in-law or somewhere else, but he got pretty good at it. And then after a while, he opened his own thing. And he opened in 1930.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my dad and my uncle, I guess there was be there before my dad was. I don't know when my uncle. So I actually had two uncles in there, but it was really in my time, my grandfather was already retired or retiring. And I started there full time in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So you got to do the math. I was 16.
What's your earliest memory of the market? Like even before you started working there?
My earliest memory of the market. Okay. Do you know where McDonald's is right now?
Yep.
On the corner of 6th Avenue and 28th Street? Okay. That used to be a Greek diner. George's, I believe it was called. And you would have lunch at 9 in the morning.
Are you talking about this McDonald's right here on the picture?
Yep. That's right.
That's the one.
Yep.
Holy shit. You got amazing pictures in this book, by the way. I mean, you really scoured the earth for all the pictures you could find in here.
Yeah.
It's
Do they still
impressive.
have that thing in the library where you have to like look through the newspaper and like stop it and like move it?
Oh, with the little thing? I hate that.
Yeah.
The microfilm. That's the
Yes,
microfilm.
the
digitalized.
microfilm.
But my
Oh,
earliest memory that I have as a little kid was sitting in that diner having a bowl of soup with my father. For
Wow.
whatever
You had
reason,
soup at
that
McDonald's?
moment stuck in my head. Huh?
George's.
George's restaurant.
George,
Ah,
so
okay.
McDonald's.
back in that time, the majority of florists were Greek. The majority of the florists were Greek, and the diner, that diner, and then there was a couple bars on 28th Street that they started drinking at 5 a.m. You know, they're
Was the same thing for like the wholesale florists, or the wholesale florists is just a different community? You said florists.
No, the wholesalers was a big mix, I think, of Greek and Jewish and Italian, and but the majority was Greek. Even today, the guys that are still left there, most of them
The
are
old
Greek.
school guys,
Yeah.
Greek.
Yeah, Louis from Majors and Joanne from U.S. Evergreen. I understand they're still there going.
Yep.
You know, and then you got Johnny K over there, or Johnny C over there in Associated, and Daryl over at Rallis, right? He's still there, and yeah, there's a bunch. And then there's newer people that are there too. Dutch Flower Line was the first, like, all Holland company to open up. He used to be next to the parking lot, I remember. I don't know if he's still in the same spot, but he used to be next to the parking lot. I went to park there when I worked on 20th Street. When I had a car to drive, not a company van, but when I got a car, it cost $40 a month to park your car.
It's $40 an hour.
It is $40 an hour. I said to the guy, "You're fucking kidding me, right?" He goes, "No, it's $40." I said, "I was only here for 45 minutes. It's $40." I couldn't believe it. And there's no parking. There's like way different now. And then there's like you walk down the street and there's all these new little boutique hotels and stuff up and down the street, which kind of like makes it weird for me.
Hated them.
Yeah.
Did you ever
There's
did you,
hotels?
Yep.
did you ever hear of Chris, the King of Plants?
Yep, he's gone. Yeah, I know.
Chris was
King,
well,
I used to go his name out. King.
this guy, Chris, he was a Yugoslavian monster, beast guy. Like he was like a pro wrestler or something at one point. He was.
Boxer.
Was he a boxer?
Yeah, boxer.
I thought he was a pro wrestler. Anyway, this guy was an animal. He was a beast. And he went ahead and opened up a plant nursery here in Florida. And he bought his own tractor trailer and loaded the truck himself, drive it to New York, and unload it himself. The guy was a beast.
Yep.
And he was smart. He bought a whole bunch of real estate up there on the corner of 28th Street and 6th Avenue and then around the corner. I don't remember everything, but I just remember this guy. And then I moved to Florida in 2000.
Oh, wow.
And I'm working here in a place in Florida. And guess who walks in?
Chris.
Chris, the King of Plants. He looks exactly the same, but just older. Still like, and then he took me and Edwin on his boat one Saturday. We went on a boat ride with him and down in the Keys. It was really nice. And I just remembered him being like, I just would stare at him because he was like, this guy would jump up and down in and out of the truck and unload an entire truckload of plants.
Yep.
And I'm not talking these little tiny 4-inch plants. I'm talking about things that are 10 feet tall, big ass pots, things that weigh 100 pounds. He would, and he had all, he did.
Aren't you glad that wasn't your job? You
I mean,
you had a job nonetheless.
I lifted a few plants in my day, but nothing like this guy. And this guy was just things that pop into my head. Chris, the King of Plants.
He was a Marlboro man.
He was
Marlboro
what?
man. He was a Marlboro model. Yeah, he was a model for Marlboro.
Yeah, he was very, very handsome. He had the long blonde hair like Fabio, you know? Yeah, he was. But I have this memory of me and my dad sitting in this diner having soup.
So that's your earliest memory. Now
I have a million memories, but if you just ask me, like every time I kind of like think about for some reason that bowl of soup keeps popping up. I don't know why.
What kind of soup was
memory.
it?
That was a core memory. A chicken limon.
No, it's probably a lentil. Who knows?
Matzo ball.
Who knows? Yeah. And then it became a McDonald's. And every morning I had a big breakfast at McDonald's. That's a pancakes, a sausage, and some eggs. They came in a
Joel-sized
styrofoam little
breakfast.
tray, and it was a big breakfast.
Did they call them hot cakes back then too?
I don't know if Ryan, you remember my customer Abdullah?
Oh, I see.
Abdul, you know, I don't know if there still is, but there used to be a little deli like 2 doors down from Rallis.
Yes.
Is it still there?
Still there.
Okay.
Yep.
So this deli, I must have been, I don't know, 16, 17 years old. I stole an ice cream. I did. I took it.
What kind of ice cream?
I don't know. But I remember I took this ice cream. And I felt so guilty about it. Like a week later, I went back and said, look, I took an ice cream. I didn't pay for it. Here's the money. And I paid for it. And the owner of that deli was this guy, Abdullah. And then I moved to Florida. This is back in the 80s. I moved to Florida in 2000. And somewhere early on, I got this phone call from a guy who wants to buy a whole bunch of roses, that he sells the roses at the foot of the Queensboro Bridge. And he wants to buy, and he says he knows me. And I'm like, well, who are you? And he didn't speak great English. He talked really fast. And when he said that to me, hello, boss, hello, I said, man, I remember this guy. And I said, did you used to work in a deli on 6th Avenue? He goes, yes, that was me. I remember the ice cream. He started talking to me about the ice cream.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was buying roses here for years. It's funny how you run into people. Hello, boss.
So the district is still booming. How many floral establishments are there still?
2 went out, so now we have about 9.
But of that 9, some of them are kind of like merged together, right?
Yes, you have Gary Page and Dutch Floral Line merged, so they call it New York Flower Group.
And Harvest. Isn't Harvest part of that group too?
Yeah, Harvest was like this little rose boutique store.
Yeah, but he did it in a cool way. He refrigerated his whole store.
Yeah, he did.
And everything he sold out of water, and most wholesalers were just laying it on the shelf. I thought that was a cool concept.
That's true. And so it was him. Yeah, those 3 merged together. And then you have Admiral Floral. You have you have Associated. You have as well as J Rose. Floramex is there. Joey, yeah. And then you have Rallis, and you have U.S. Evergreen, Major. Yeah. There's one store, though, that's been there doing the same thing since 1900, and that's B&J Floral Supply. Before they used to be called New York Floral Supply Store.
Let me tell you about New York Floral Supply.
Okay.
Let me tell you, the guy's name was Jimmy.
Oh, okay, write this down.
Jimmy.
You gotta add it to the next book.
Jimmy was a forager as well. He lived upstate New York, and he had this pickup truck, and he would cut the rhododendron and all that stuff, and he would bring it in. Every morning, I would spot him in the Midtown Tunnel coming into the city. And
oh, wow.
This guy was one of the hardest workers I've ever seen in my life. He was a beast. And New York Floral Supply had a wonderful building. They had a really nice, like 3 or 4 story building with a big elevator, and they used to go up and down. And that's where, the bag of knives that I found, Ryan? Remember I showed you the bag of knives? Like half those knives came from New York Floral Supply. Because I would go in there you would go into these places, you didn't have to pay. They knew who you were. You just say, mark me down. You didn't even ask a price. Right. You just mark me down and just walk out. It's kind of like how the guys that work here use my credit cards. Same. It was awesome. It was really good. But Jimmy was always working. I just never forget. He had a partner. I don't think his partner's name was Chris. But these guys were old school, man. These guys there was something else. And they sold the ribbon and the Oasis, and they had the knives and all the spray cans of all the different dyes. Because we used to... One of my jobs was the green carnations for St. Patrick's.
Oh, wow.
And we would get the carnations in from like Denver or California, and they would come in these big giant boxes. And one of my jobs was to tint the green carnation. I was actually pretty good at it. And we used to tint thousands of green carnations. It's not a thing anymore, but it used to be a huge thing in New York. Everybody would have a carnation on their lapel. Everybody would have, it was a thing. And you'd go into New York Floral Supply and you'd get the They were like these thick glass jars. They weren't circular. They were like kind of square. I remember them. And one jar goes into one bucket. I think that was the process. But I used to buy all the green dye from Jimmy.
You have
That's
to
central. That's central.
at the bottom of the carnation so it could soak it up more.
No. We cut the stems, dropped them in warm water with the dye in it, and then draped a very thin plastic over the carnations. And
why? Why the plastic?
It would help them open. The humidity from the steam coming out of the warm water would help the flower open more and absorb more green dye. And the next morning you'd come in and everything was at the perfect tint.
They uptake
and
more.
And then
like
you would
that
have to change the water because if you left it in the dye, it got too dark. So you would have to change the water and cut them again and then put them in cold, fresh water. And that's how we did it. But we used to do thousands of them. They used to come in these giant boxes the size of this table.
That's before the farms were tinting themselves.
Those were called California Fulls, but they also came from Denver, Colorado as well.
The Greenleafs. Greenleafs used to grow out there.
Yeah. No, I think it was the DWFs. I guess they're born from that. Yeah. From growing.
Did you work with Central with Bruce?
Bruce and his father, Harry.
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding. Ah, yes. Harry owned my favorite florist. Harry had a big cigar all the time. They owned my favorite florist. He was, you know where the Citibank building is? I believe he had that spot where they knocked the whole city block down when he had his store there. I'm trying to remember if this is right. Might be somebody else, but I don't think so. Citibank built this giant building. They knocked everything down, including Harry's store. But when they reopened the building, they gave him his spot back. And now he was like, thousands of people were coming in and out of that corner all day long. And I remember he had a very good flower shop there. And then Bruce and Harry bought it from somebody else. I don't think they started the company. I think they bought it from somebody else. And Bruce was a really nice guy. He was Harry's son. I remember them. Is he still around?
No, Bruce passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, so his wife took over. Took over. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember. Bruce was cool, man. And he was next to Harry Velakis, wholesale florist.
Yes.
He was right next door.
Yes. And now it's a restaurant.
That's right.
It's a restaurant now. Wow.
No, but Bruce was like one of the very few business owners that looked after the florists during the pandemic. He was like, "You need anything? You need any money?" And I was like, "Dude, come on." He shoved a $1,000 in my face. He says, "Take it, pay me back when you can." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, they were good people, hard workers, good people. I remember Harry, his dad, my favorite florist.
So what do you guys imagine like the future of the 28th Street Market going to be like? Do you think it's more hotels? Do you think it's going to get like historic landmark status and like come back?
Ryan, do you know where they that Sportsplex is on the river, on the Hudson River? It's like a big pier.
Yeah.
The city offered that to the flower market back in the early 90s, I think.
Yep.
And they blew it, man. They fucking blew it. They said no. They couldn't get along. These people could not get along. They couldn't decide. They wanted... the biggest problem is that a lot of these guys own their real estate, and their buildings were not worth anything like they're worth now. And they didn't want to move as a unit. And if they would have moved as a unit, that would have become way more of a tourist attraction than what it is right now. Exactly. It would have been a destination. It would have been on the hop on, hop off bus would have stopped there. You know, that would have been because New York City was not a big touristy spot in the 80s and the 90s. It was a shithole. People didn't go there.
As long as I can remember, as long as I can remember, New York's the Big Apple, the big, the city to go see. When did that start?
Like now.
When did that start?
Nothing like now. Times Square is a tourist attraction like there's no other in the world. Times Square. Back then, it was a shithole. It was full of crime.
No, seriously, it was.
It was dirty. It was dirty. Giuliani cleaned that up. Giuliani got rid of all that. He put it all out for development. And he had Disney and all these people come and invest a lot of money there. And now Nobody goes to New York and doesn't go to Times Square. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, you have to. It's
You have
a
to.
rite of passage. You didn't go to New York if you didn't go to
They
the
had
park
some
and Times
signs
Square.
with lights, but nothing like now. Nothing like now. It was not nice.
It was back in this wasn't the first time the city wanted to give the floral district their a spot.
Yeah, no.
Back in,
they had Hunts Point. They offered Hunts Point. They offered College Point.
I also found out that they in New York City was about to back in early 1900s, they wanted to give florists and plant people and all that their spot along the river as well, and there weren't enough people to sign up for. They didn't want to sign up for
man.
it.
Too bad.
So
that pier would have been the spot, man. That would have been great. It would have been a tourist attraction. There, it would be lined with wholesalers.
Yeah. So now I'm trying to. I try to get it landmarked, and basically
it's up to you.
Oh, but listen, no, but seriously, I before.
No, I'm asking, like, is that how it has to work? Somebody, like a random person, needs to like apply for it, or
no? What it was that I tried to get. I got all the information together about our industry, and I went over to Landmarks Commission. I went over to the Historic Floral District Association, and none of them wanted to help us. And so I asked them why, and basically, off the record, they said to me, well, you know what? I'm sorry, but you don't have any political connection or political power.
Yeah.
I said, what does that really mean? Come on, tell me. Well, you got to grease some hands, James.
Yeah.
And I can't do that.
Isn't your mayor under indictment right now for greasing his? Yeah. Nothing's changed.
His hands were greased.
Nothing has changed.
So basically, that's why right now I'm gunning to create a museum on 28th Street.
That's awesome. I think you would have been more successful if they had not rezoned the area for high rises.
They're changing the zoning. The zoning right now. I got together with the zoning department, and we were with the district council member, and the Flatiron Association, and we're trying to get them to preserve our industry here. And they're also trying to preserve the small businesses that are around.
That's fantastic.
I've also tried to.
The boutique hotels want it, because when I went and I stayed at the Ace, they had like a whole flower display, and they were trying to push. They were like, "Please visit our market," and yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, so I'm trying right now to. I got endorsement from the district council member as well as from the Flatiron Association to endorse me for the museum. And the only reason why I decided to do the museum, I felt that was like the last anchor that we have here, because eventually, the rents aren't going down, and we're trying to work with the housing people, not the housing, but with the Department of Housing and Department of Zoning Laws to prevent the landlords from continually jacking up their rent exponentially. So we're working on that. The laws have not changed in 50 years. That's what allowed all these hotels to take over. So now they changed the zoning law currently to prevent any more hotels from coming up in our area, as well as, to prevent them from happening, basically. And so right now they're trying to put more affordable housing into our area to bring more of a population of people in it. But the only issue with that is, there isn't enough green space for people in this area. So, but there had to be a sacrifice. So it took about a year of going through all these meetings with them to get them to even say the floral district, flower district. It took a year for them to say that. And so, it's a very complicated thing, and not everyone's needs. I mean, we're also, the fashion is facing the same problem we're facing as well. And so we're concerned that we'll lose our retail spaces. And so basically they're going to try to keep the retail spaces down below, and we're trying to preserve the retail spaces in the bottom and preventing it from becoming another 7-Eleven marijuana store from popping up. Basically, we're trying to preserve.
No more corporate America. Save the
7-Eleven sells marijuana in New York City.
Oh yeah, there's tons of marijuana stores that popped up all over. We have one in our block that's been shut down several times. So we're trying to prevent from it being corrupted like that. So
Yeah.
So they're also trying to
Well, you got
bring in
FIT right down the street.
FIT bought a whole block almost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they bought a whole
What
block.
is FIT?
Fashion Institute of Technology.
Oh, okay.
There's no better place to be than sitting outside on 28th Street, springtime.
Why in springtime?
Because that's when all the pretty fashion students are out, Fern.
The train station is on 28th Street and Broadway for the, what is that, the 6 train that goes there?
Oh, the
double R.
Yeah.
They walk down from that train station right past the store, and it's like everybody that works in your company
was hanging out
around that certain time of day would coincidentally be outside waiting for all the models to walk down the street, because there was a lot, I don't know if that still goes on, but I remember that.
I think it happened. Yeah. Very ambitious.
Yeah.
And boys.
Because these are, it's all fashion, and
You hear it, fatties? You can go at a certain time of day and you can get your flowers and meet some beautiful people.
Yes.
Just saying. We need to take pockets. We got to take pockets down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, right now I'm trying to, I had to revise the book twice because several businesses went out. And so I have to, revise them a little bit. So that's,
oh, yeah.
So it's kind of hard, what's called Foliage Garden. Marianne is leaving.
Wow. I remember her.
Yeah.
She was married to a tall blonde guy. What was his name?
He passed away.
What was his name?
I don't remember his name, but he passed away like 15 years ago or so.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so she just got tired of it. She's keeping her greenhouses, which are amazing.
Where
in
are they?
Island.
In Long Island.
They're in Long Island. She has about 4 of them, and she brings her plants there, conditions them to be acclimatized to this part of the United States, and then brings them in for her events and sells them.
We're out east on Long Island, like out in Mauritius, out there.
Yeah, out there. So, I went to see them, and I was like, I wanted to bring people there. She says she stopped doing that because people start stealing, some plants and stuff. But I had the opportunity to go down there, and it's really incredible greenhouses. They're really beautiful.
She's been there 40-something years.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Incredible.
So, I mean, James, huge applause for your efforts. I mean, that's impressive. There's like one man against corporate America here trying to stop it from, taking over the flower district.
It's my friend, he lives in California. He challenged me one day. He says, James, you got to do something else. You got to do something bigger than what you are doing now. And this is back before the book or before anything. And it bothered me what he said. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just, I started pursuing and pushing things. And so when I said I was going to make a book, it was the scariest thing I ever did because I didn't know, there was no map. There was no like roadmap to it. And so I just had to, create a path, and, just went and mowed and went and did it. And then creating the museum too, I'm trying to, do the same thing. And so far, I'm very lucky. I met this realtor who wants to pitch my books to wealthy people and get them to donate so I can get the building on 28th Street and create the museum.
Is that what you need right now is funds? Is that what?
Yeah.
Is there like a goal number you have to reach or?
Well, basically the building is about 15 million. And then my goal is to have 30 to get the operations going and all that.
Okay.
So the building is already renovated. Everything's ready to go. It's just, a matter of getting the money. It could be between 15 and 20, but, we're going to try to hit for 15 if we can. And then the building's already ready. The realtor was like, we'll get the owner to sell you this building. I was like, really? Like, yes, we will get the owner to sell you the building. So.
Well, Mimi's starting a very exciting 3D printing business.
Yeah.
She'll be there. She'll be able to help soon.
A lot of my memories, whenever I visit family in New York is always the district. Like, so I mean, and I've stayed at basically all the boutique hotels there. Oh. I love it. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. There's something special about the morning, like 6 a.m. and you see all the flowers out. It's very, don't get me started. I haven't cried in a long time, but I just hope that everybody can witness that, because that's a part of New York that's very special.
And I've also been doing tours. So I give people tours to raise money for the museum. I've been doing tours. I've been promoting it as much as I can, the district, and so I've been doing that. And as well as just working hard, trying to reach out to generational florists, and trying to get them to give me their stories so I can build a legacy for our families and for, our business, to say, hey, we're not just flower people, we're artists, we bring things to life,
What kind of exhibits are you imagining at the museum? Or is it going to be mostly photos or?
Well, it's going to be a mixture of photos and some relics, as well as exhibiting new florists of New York.
Cool.
Also doing classes for kids to introduce them to our industry, training the disadvantaged people, the trade, and teaching them so that we can build up a better world. We lost a lot of people during the pandemic, and we're trying to get back people. Also introducing us as an industry to this world and how much we contributed to the fabric of this country.
It's awesome. It's really good ideas there.
Do you know that early on that the flower market was unionized? Did you know that?
Yes, I do. It was a loose union.
It was Local 277.
Yep.
Which was part of the Butter and Egg Union from Hunts Point. And I remember, no, it wasn't so loose. I mean, it wasn't. But back in the...
With the butter and egg because it needed refrigeration?
I have no idea why. But I remember the guy used to come with the Cadillac and the big cigar. He used to roll up on 28th Street, with the big suit and the trench coat and the big cigar, just like you would imagine in the movies. It's exactly how it was.
Were you part of the union that you were working?
I was the boss's son, so I was not in the union, but everyone else was. And that's why my father ultimately had to close, is because he fired union people and hired other people. And then the union took him to court. I mean, my dad was having financial problems, but that was the icing on the cake, is when the union won the suit. The judge said, that's it. Bring me the keys. You're done. And then my dad moved to Miami. But it was the union that was the
icing on the cake.
Yes. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? But I remember, the rules were you needed to pay the employees until 2 p.m. Doesn't matter if you finished at 11. You had to pay till 2. These guys had, they're a legit union contract. And there were strikes and threats of strikes over the years, and lots of union negotiation over the years. So that's why, I don't know if you ever hear me talk about opening the paper. That's one of my memories, Ryan, is the torture of having to stand there for 3 hours and open newspaper. We used to pack the flowers with newspaper. Newspaper that wasn't sold. So you'd go to newsstands and pick up the Sunday paper, the Sunday Times. Specifically, we were looking for the Sunday Times, and there'd be 10 or 15 bundles that they didn't sell. And
was there a reason why you only wanted the Times?
Because they were bigger. The Times was the bigger newspaper.
The Sunday paper was triple.
No, the Times itself was a double-sided newspaper versus the Daily News or the Post was much smaller newspaper. And my uncle was such a prick. He would make us stay there every second till 2:00 and open newspaper if there was no work to be done. And we would open newspaper, just sit there and chit chat and open newspaper for hours.
Wow.
Yep, that's true. And because we used to pack the roses with ice and then roll them in the newspaper and then pack them in a box.
Do you have flashbacks if you read a paper nowadays? Do you not like it?
Do they still have newspapers?
No.
Yes, they do.
They do.
That says a lot about you, Fern.
I haven't seen a newspaper. I mean, God, in a hot minute.
Really?
No, but you couldn't fire a guy. You couldn't just fire people. You'd have to have a hearing. You'd have to have you'd have to
sit down with the
union. They'd
union.
have to have a certain amount of written warnings, and everything, you'd have to have. But then after this, I'm trying to remember the union guy's name. It'll come to me. But this guy's driver, his chauffeur or whatever he was, after this guy died or retired, or I don't know what happened with him, the driver took over as the union guy.
He was the next guy up. He was just the right hand.
The driver. Wow.
The driver was the muscle.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He wasn't really a driver.
But they'd come in once a month or whatever just to say hello to everybody and make sure that everybody knew they were still around. But over the time, like you said, it started to get loose and then it started to fizzle away. But I would say the first 10 years of me working down there, that was
legit.
It was legit.
It was legit.
Yeah, it was legit.
Amazing, because I've been, the people don't talk about it like when I speak to them, no one mentions the union to me. I'm going to definitely ask some people about it.
Yeah.
Experiences, especially the guys in Superior.
I wouldn't talk about the union
Superior,
either. Don't worry.
Well, Superior, there were retailers. I'm not sure if they were participating in the union, but I'm sure like Louis knows who they are, or Gary Page remembers about that.
That's scary. Oh, that's scary.
For sure. I'm certain that they would remember about that. But like they did stupid shit. Like I remember sitting in on one union negotiation with my dad, just sitting there, and these guys were fighting for their birthdays off with pay. And my dad was like, why the fuck would a grown man want to have his birthday off with pay? But you know what? I think in the end they won that. I think they actually got that.
That's the stupid shit. You just gotta, okay, fine.
Yeah. That's why when we had a young lady working here, every year her birthday was a big deal and she had to take it off. And I was like, what are you, in the union?
Yeah. Joelle knows. You don't even need to say a name. Joelle knows exactly who you're talking about.
It's like, what are you, in the union?
Don't worry. I had to go to Vegas a bunch of times with her. It was, tough life. Tough life.
Oh, what a nightmare.
What a tough life. Well, Vegas in January, I mean, it's 30, 40 degrees out there. It could be.
Yeah.
I think we're going to send you the Tara jacket for the museum.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
If Mimi wants to part with it. I don't know.
No, I like it.
No, can't have it. Sorry.
Maybe we can can we do a replica?
Ryan,
a wax figure of Mimi.
Ryan did replicas of those jackets. It was cool because after we got jackets and everybody else got jackets. It was cool. All the different companies had their jackets. But Ryan gave my family exact replicas of these jackets as Christmas gifts a few years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Am I good? They look good.
They
looked super old school. They looked legit.
Yeah.
Like they look legit. Like it was awesome.
They made for me like this, like a frame that has my original jacket. It has like an old business card and some other memory stuff. And it's
a lot of people stop in the hallway and look at that, Mike, and they always ask about it.
Yeah,
because I didn't have James's pictures. I had to Photoshop. I would Google Maps screenshot things, and then I would Photoshop the old building sign into it to try to make it look.
You didn't do all the work like
what it was
over here. James was.
Well, he actually found the pictures.
My dad's building's still there. It's a silk flower place now.
Yeah,
but
so
it was falling apart.
I'd be interested to know how much
it was falling down in the 90s. It was collapsing because they took I can't imagine it's still standing because I remember the ceiling was sagging down.
It's amazing what stucco will do.
No, they took the wall out in the middle. Like
really?
It was like I don't know. I remember I wanted to build my apartment on the top floor because they used to store cardboard boxes and shit up there. I was like, oh well, I want to just live here.
Wow.
Rose Street.
Yeah, I wanted to renovate that, make it my apartment, and I would live up there. But
that'd be cool.
That never developed, but I really did want to.
All right, so before we go any further, James, if somebody wants to reach out to you, if they want to contact you, maybe they want to support your initiative.
Well, before that, I just wanted to mention something to James. You need to reach out to the Kennicotts. The Kennicotts. And I was recently at Kennecott, Chicago, and they go back to the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Their history goes, and I think the reason why I'm telling you this, because I think you can learn a little bit of what to look for from these people, because I was there and they're in the process right now. Mm-hmm. Red Kennicott and his wife have saved everything. Like they have every magazine they were ever in, every advertisement they ever made. They have letters and just so much history. They're building their own little museum there in Chicago.
The
wow.
Kennicott Center, right, Mike?
Yeah. I was there a couple months ago, and I spent about an hour, maybe more, just staring at all the cool shit that they are saving and that they're now in the process of sharing. And they
That's cool.
And they're displaying it. And they have like these scrapbooks that the Kennicotts have saved like since the 1900s, like goes way back. They have such cool history. There's a book, I believe.
Mm-hmm. They did a book for their 100 year.
I think there's
What's it?
I do not know the name of it. I just know that they published their own book.
We have it somewhere. I have the book somewhere around my desk somewhere. But that's a greatest example of a wholesale florist history that I've ever seen. It's so amazing. I really recommend that you
Oh, I'm going to go there.
go there. Yeah. You need to take a flight to Chicago and you need to go there. And I think you will find it fascinating how much stuff. And they have another place that I didn't go to. I forget what they call it. That has even more history.
Like their original wholesaler, right? The original location.
It goes back like to the original settlers. Like it goes like way, way back. It's really interesting. And because of what you're doing stuff that belongs to 50 other people. This is all coming from one family, from one place.
Yeah.
And I could have spent more time going through those scrapbooks and reading all the different stuff and looking at they have pieces of furniture that date back. They have just all kinds of memorabilia, typewriter, just all kinds of stuff, adding machine, just things that most people don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And I don't. Is it okay if I go get that book? I think I have it right there.
Yeah, go grab it.
I was able to find a book of the New York florists. I only found two of them. The New York's Florist Club. I got the book from 1900. Their book of their anniversary.
Wow.
So coincidentally, it was right under your book.
Wow, look at
So it's
Society of American
Kennicott
Florists.
Brothers. Oh,
Look at that, Mike.
wow.
Yeah,
New York
I
Florist Club.
just coincidentally flipped to the page in the.
Where did you find that book?
In an antique bookstore out in the middle of America.
That's phenomenal.
Wild.
Wow.
I remember
So-
that logo. I remember
It says
Ah.
it says Society of American Florists on there too.
that.
That's really cool.
It says this, just so you can. It says Kennicott Brothers, 1836 to 1881. The journey begins. I mean, that's where this goes all the way back, and there is pictures. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you would find this really, really motivating for what you're doing because they've done a great job of. Is the word archiving? Is that right?
Yeah.
That's the right word.
Yeah.
They've done a really great job. Red and Katie Kennicott and their family.
So what was the title? The full title of this book?
This book is called The History of Kennicott Brothers Company, 1836 to 2021. This book was from 2021, right? So, and it's written by Elizabeth Z. Kopp, Kopp. I would guess they have these books available somehow, somewhere at Kennicott's. If not, if you don't have any luck, let me know. I'm going to be actually hanging out with them in a couple weeks, where I can get.
Could you send me the picture of it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now you can't get mad at mom if she hoards stuff. She could be saving for our museum.
No, I don't think
The
so.
Jeff Fresh Museum.
We don't
Damn
have
right.
Yeah.
anything.
But seriously, it's very difficult to a lot of the wholesalers that I mentioned in the book. It's hard to find their families. It's hard to find. Some people don't want to even talk about it. That's why I'm visiting florists who've been around several generations to see what they have. But here in New York City, because you don't have that much space to store things, that's why things are thrown out. And,
Yeah.
So, but it's little by little. Yeah. I mean, I got back in the day, they used to have competitions, the growers. of who had the best carnation of the year,
Yeah.
and I got one of the awards of that, two awards of.
That's the original Outstanding Varieties competition.
Yeah.
That SAF puts
cool.
on every year now.
That's cool.
I wish I'd have saved more stuff from my family's history. I really do. I wish I had saved more stuff because there was a lot of stuff. I remember there was a lot of stuff.
I guess you never really think about it, right? You never really say, oh, one day this might not be around. Let me save all of this.
Well, somebody has it.
Somebody has
A
it.
lot of people buy stuff and, garage sales and antiques. And yeah, it might have found a home somewhere else.
So
I found a photograph online about this florist that was in Harlem in the early 1900s, and they're still around doing flowers. And not in Harlem, but up further up north. And I was able to get in contact with the third generation of them. And soon I'll be getting together with them and seeing all this material they have and working with them to try to put their stuff in the museum as well.
I used to deliver to La Orquídea Florist in Harlem. I remember being there. La Orquídea. Yeah. Before we get off the podcast, I would love to tell you guys a funny story about me as a young kid trying to impress and outwork all these union guys as the owner's son. One of my I think I've told you about my aunt up in the office.
Mm-hmm.
So they had this loudspeaker system. It was like a telephone. You pick it up and it had a button on it. And you push the button and then there's this giant loudspeaker inside and everybody hears. And we'd be working, we'd be hustling and slinging boxes and bunches around. And all of a sudden, my aunt would get on the loudspeaker. Michael, come upstairs. I got some cookies for you, Michael. And I'm like, oh, shit. And everybody would go, yeah, go get your cookies. I was so embarrassed. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you remembered that because you returned the favor. You used to do that to me in the warehouse.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Ryan, come to the office.
Your daddy needs you. Ryan, your daddy needs you in the office.
That's what happened.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
There you go.
History repeats itself, guys.
It does.
I love that. That's hilarious.
It's subconscious. It's from the torture.
It's all part of the fun. I like it.
Generational torture. Mm-hmm.
All right, so James, Ryan has some questions for you, but before we get there, I do want to take a moment. If someone wants to reach out, someone wants to help your efforts, they want to donate, they want to learn a little more, maybe they have some history to share with you about their time and family in New York City, how can they get in contact with you?
Sure, you could either email me at info@flowermuseum.org, or you can call me my cell, 917-847-4546. And also, you could take a look at the website, flowermuseum.org.
Definitely going to check out the website.
And can they order these books on the website?
Yep.
I recommend the book.
The book has some
is
really cool pictures that, this man scoured the earth for this. This is crazy.
It's a nice book. It's hardcover. It's got a lot of pictures, and it's great if you're in the flower business and you're a flower buff. It's a great coffee table book, in my opinion.
Definitely a great.
We're collecting like these really cool books, and we're making like a library shelf somewhere in our new spot.
It'll be half
where people
educational and half history.
Yeah, I think they're fun. But definitely check out Kennecott.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a good match. Go ahead, Ryan. Questions are up.
Sure. Yep. Okay, so these are rapid fire. Just give us your gut response, okay?
Yep.
What is your favorite flower?
Peonies.
What is the best sandwich?
Roast beef.
Okay. That's an important one. We were going to judge your answer on that one.
I wish somebody from New York would say bacon, egg on a roll.
I was expecting that or a Reuben.
That's my favorite. Bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. With ketchup and pepper. Nice.
What is the scariest animal?
My scariest animal? A shark.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Ah,
Raise money for the New York flower market.
exactly.
What's the most overrated flower?
Roses,
What's the most underrated flower?
carnations.
Number one answer.
What kind of flowers do you want at your funeral?
Ooh. Um, that's a tough one. Orchids, peonies. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your go-to late night drunk food?
Pizza.
Oh man, if you said anything other than pizza from New York, I would have been
So where's
upset.
your
I was
pizza
hoping for
spot?
a Dominican meal, some mango or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's where I live. It's hard to find because I live like 3 blocks away from the district. So if I was uptown, I would say yeah, Latino food.
You asking for his pizza spot? Is that what you're asking him? Though?
Yeah.
No. My pizza spot, Two Boots.
Two boots. Nice.
I feel like you
Could you
forgot a lot.
recommend somebody for this podcast?
You know what? Daryl from Rallis.
Yeah. It'd be cool.
He'll be hilarious.
Who do you
Gary
think's
would
got
be
the
cool
most?
too. Gary would be really cool to have on the stories.
Who do you think's got the most stories about you, Dad? Any of them have stories about you?
Yeah, that's what we want to hear.
Probably not that much. Probably not that
Or they'll
much.
remember you running around up and down the street?
I'm sure they
Tiny.
remember that, but I don't think they
The
have
cookie
stories
guy.
about me.
The cookie guy.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't have known about that. That was more insight. But I was in those places every single day picking up something.
Right.
You know? My uncle would go, Mike, you fat bastard. Go run around the corner and get me 50 white roses. Hurry up. And
Yep.
I'd run around trying to find 50 white roses and then bring it back. And I would see people every day. You know, I was really close friends with Neil from Velacos. Have you ever met him, Neil? He
I met
passed
them.
away last year, I believe, or the year before. He passed away. But he was a really good guy. I stayed in touch with him over the years, and I would pick him up a bagel and bialy every morning. I mean,
Wow.
a coffee and a bialy every morning. And bring it.
Wow.
There used to be a parking garage right across the street from Harry Velacos. I don't know if it's still there, but it was made out of steel. And there was a little sandwich shop on the first floor of the garage. And I used to go in there and get him his bialy and coffee in the morning. And then pick up a hamper of daisies.
Wow.
You need a co-author. You got one.
Oh yeah. Or just what do they call it? A source or what? Yeah, like you'll be the glossary.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So much history. It's really
James,
cool.
are you working also on a second book, on a complimentary book?
I'm trying to do one of specifically the florists of that era of the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh,
Have you contacted any of the television networks?
No,
Okay.
not yet. I
Are
want
you
to,
writing a screenplay or anything?
I want to create a short of the history of the floral district.
I think a screenplay would be pretty cool, or like a scripted series about like specifically 28th Street Market would be really cool. I think
Listen,
just because the energy and the atmosphere and like the characters you'd get.
Oh
I
man,
think
there's so many characters. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
I think Uncle Jerry is a great character. I could see him.
Is Uncle
Yeah,
Jerry
every
from
movie needs a
28th
villain.
Street?
Every movie needs a villain.
No, it's a really rich, like the stories it's just unbelievable. So many stories of.
Yeah.
Even like when I was doing flowers for Associated, one person, John told me, the son of the owner, John, he said, "Hey, I need you to do this
Johnny
flowering."
K.
Johnny K. Told me, "Hey, I need you to do flowers, for this person." And I went over and it was like a mob joint, and I was like, "Holy freaking cow! What am I doing in here?" And it was a gun club on Tiro de Senio on Google Street. I don't know if you've ever been into it, but it's all this it's all these guns on the wall. And I said, "Okay, who are the members here?" And he says, "Oh, we have 200 members." I'm like, what? And they had 200 members, mostly Italian, but Johnny K was a few Greeks that were there, that were members, and they would meet with the mayor. They would meet with all these higher ups. Have meetings with them. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Is this for real? It's like, yeah. I'm like, wow. And yeah. And as I met one mobster, shook his hand, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing business with these guys. It was too scary for me. It was like truly out of the movies. I was like, I'm okay.
That's awesome.
You're only allowed to have one garbage company on 28th Street. You can never change it. It was 8 carting. You can never.
That was his district, and that's it.
Yeah, that was it. You couldn't shop around for price or whatever. It was their way or the highway. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a window the next morning.
Yeah, they will come around. Every office, they'll come around in January, knocking on doors.
Have you spoken to the Armelinis ever about history of 28th Street? Because they know a whole lot of stories. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Steven and David Armelini, I'm sure, have a lot of stories. Because they are one of the biggest trucking companies, and they were born really delivering to 28th Street.
Ah.
Yeah.
I should hit them up.
They used to bring the flowers from the farms in South Jersey to 28th Street.
Really?
So that's their beginnings, yeah.
Wow.
They probably got some cool artifacts and relics too, saved
so.
away somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
There's too many of them not to have it in one of those houses.
Well, I have Mrs. Armelini's book.
No.
She gave me a book. Yeah, I have her book too.
Wow.
History of their family. It's pretty interesting.
Huh. You gotta look that up.
Okay. Well, awesome, guys.
James, was there anything we didn't talk about or touch on? Anything we missed?
Nope, you're on target with everything. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
No, thank you, man. I think what you're doing is ridiculously noble. I hope you are very successful and are able to accomplish all your goals, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Kudos. Keep going. Don't
Thank
stop.
you. My goal is to preserve what we have here in New York and to help people see that, we're an industry that should be kept and we should be protected. That's my goal. If I can do that, then I've done my job.
It's a beautiful thing.
Hell yeah.
Keep going, James.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Two Fat Guys Talking Flowers, where we're always going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly about flowers. Joel, Mike, Mimi, Ryan, myself, and our awesome guest, James François-Pijuan, which is French peony. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day.